my children.
You are listening to You and the Truth, where we will give you the truth face to face. Now, what you do with it is up to you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. My name is Ralph. As you probably know, I'm better known as Elpin in some of these circles. I'm going to sit back today. I'm going to hand this over to three gentlemen. They're actually my co-hosts that fill in every once in a while. We have a blast together, but we got a great show for you today. This is all about aliens. And I know that when you guys, everybody thinks about aliens, there's different definitions, but there's one thing that really comes to mind. I'm going to hand it over to Rick. Rick, tell everybody, give everybody the definition of aliens, and then we can take it from there.
Well, aliens, as the adjective definition, is belonging to a foreign country or nation. Relating to denoting being supposedly from other worlds is the noun definition of it, along with a plant or animal species originally introduced from another country. But, you know, when I think of alien, I'm thinking ET. I'm not thinking of people coming across the border illegally. I mean, that never really... Illegal aliens that way is not what I think of. I don't think the majority of people would think of that, even with what's been going on in the government now with all the border entry and everything. But the funny part about the alien that we're going to talk about today is why all of a sudden, after like 50 years of the suppression of the government, hiding any findings from us, including literally Air Force sightings, every military member you've ever talked to or heard, there's always been stories going back to I mean, as long as I've been alive, literally. But now all of a sudden they want to blame, let's see, spy balloons on, ET. I mean, basically that's what they want to blame it on, or try to cover it and go that route. Now, I know Jason had some great points before we discussed this show, so I want to turn it over to him. Why do you think that is, Jason? And is it that easy to blindfold this America and just spoon feed us shit, basically?
Yeah, I think so, because if, like, really think about it, you have this alien race who goes millions and millions of light years through space with this advanced technology, but for some reason they have a shortage of hydrogen, of water, of gold. Regardless of what you could think of that they possibly could need, we already have the technology now. We're playing with it. At least we have cold fusion technology that you can take hydrogen, and in a lab you can turn it into gold, into lead. You can make it into whatever element you want just by adding protons, electrons, and neutrons to it. So why would they need to come here if they were really such an advanced species? You know, if maybe they wanted to watch us, okay, well, we can watch us from satellites. Why would they need to come here? So a lot of the narrative doesn't really make sense. And like you said, for more than 50 years, they've been denying it, saying it never happened, saying it's not true, calling us crazy. But then, you know, there's these stories that just sort of trickle out of the military and out of, you know, civilian contractors that, like Bob Lazar. I mean, that's kind of a series of crazy stories. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he said that he was an engineer at Air Force One, and he worked on some of these technologies. I forget what's the element.
115.
He claimed that they had this element. You know what it is?
It's element 115.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it. Hang on.
That is.
Keep going. I'll come up with it here.
So he says that they found it in the wreckage, and they were able to figure out what it was and actually use it. And then after, I don't know, 20 years of working with it, now they can actually make it. So they were trying to get the UFOs to run again. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you could look at it and say, oh, this whole phenomenon started in World War II. You know, famously, we had the Foo Fighters. And then when we started testing nuclear weapons and when we used 2 of them, all of a sudden, the story goes that these things just showed up, right? Mm-hmm. And they started hanging around our nuclear facilities and stopping us from doing testing and things like that. That's the narrative. But there's old oil paintings. You know, there's a painting of Jesus and a painting of Mary holding Jesus. And in the background, there's these UFOs. And like I was talking with Ralph about this just a couple days ago. In the Mahabharata in ancient India, they have what are called Vimanas, which are these, I mean, there's no other way to explain them, but they're spaceships. They call them airships, but
Mhm.
they even have a mercury vortex reactor that these things ran on, and they have different, like, where they would sleep and where they would pilot it and all this kind of stuff, just like we would. So it is not a new thing. What
Right.
could it possibly be?
Right. So yeah, Paul.
So it's
extend-
the element 115 is muscovium. I heard it as a different name. It was a UM something name. I can't remember that one, but it came up on Wikipedia as muscovium element 115. But kind of what Jason was saying, that why are these supposed aliens coming, and what are they doing here? Are they watching us? What about they started our race, and they are observing us and seeing how we are doing this. It's been put forth by some of the things that I've been reading and watching, that aliens started our race and they are just seeing how we are progressing as people and stuff. I mean, that could be one thing too. And something that the government might be trying to hide is that possibly they have recovered some of these alien spacecrafts and are reverse engineering it, and that's how all of a sudden we're getting all these spy planes and all these airplanes that can't be detected by radar and actually look like spacecraft. Like a stealth bomber looks kind of like a triangle spacecraft, and some of the eyewitness accounts show a triangle shaped plane or something in the air. It looks like a triangle. That could be the stealth bomber. But it also says there's no heat signature, there's no windows, there's no wings on some of these, some of the famous Tic Tac aircraft that we see off San Diego and in the Atlantic and stuff. So, I mean, there's that too. So a lot of different stuff that could be coming out of this.
That's interesting. Paul, let me ask you, you just mentioned something very curious. So evidently these people, if aliens started, is that what you said? They started? One
I
theory
didn't say
is
they did, but I mean, that's a theory. I mean, they
right.
could.
That's a theory. That would be then anti-Christian, right? So these people that believe that, there's no possibility of them believing in God. Jason?
I could kind of speak to that. So like ancient Mesopotamians, they have a story. You can find it it starts in the Epic of Gilgamesh. You can find it in the Enuma Elish, and I have it written here. The Atrahasis. And basically in these ancient books, they talk about this species, this race that came from above. They call them the Anunnaki. The word Anunnaki means those who from the heavens came. And the story is that they came here to mine gold from a planet called Nibiru, which is supposedly orbiting our same sun, but it's like a 3,600 year orbit. So they come around, almost every 3,500 years, and they visit Earth again. And the story goes, on their planet, they had some serious climate catastrophe going on, and they needed gold, basically to block out the sun so that they can recover their planet, because their atmosphere was gone, which ironically, Bill Gates is playing around with that on our planet right now. And we have no idea what it's going to do. But so the idea is they got here and they sent basically explorers. The explorers get here and they go, yes, there's gold. All right, start mining. And these are like astronauts. They don't know how to mine. And it's like 5, 6 guys, let's say 30 guys. How much could they really mine? So they went back to Nibiru and they brought this other alien race that they called the Agigi. And those were not that smart, but they were strong. So everybody used them in the mining fields. Well, they were not supposed to reproduce. But little by little, the Agigi were supposedly reproducing without them realizing. And by the time they realized it, there was an army and an uprising. So now they had to basically wipe out their slaves. And, this is all in stone tablets. Well, once they wiped out their slaves, now they're stuck with themselves mining again, and they don't want to do that. So they look around and they're like, hey, look at these Cro-Magnons or Neanderthals or whatever was here at that time. Let's see if we can get a worker out of them. So they weren't smart enough, and they kept rebelling. So they said, okay, let's mix them with our DNA. So the story goes, they spliced them up, and boom, they had Adamu. And from him, they made a couple more clones and more clones, but they only made men so that they wouldn't be able to reproduce. So the whole thing didn't happen again. Well, it was two brothers. I can't remember their names right now. Normally I can, but basically one was in charge of outer space around the Earth, and the other one was running operations on the surface. And basically the one that was on the surface decided that he wanted to create females and allow them to reproduce. So he does that. His brother finds out, strikes him, with military, and lets their father know, Nibiru. And now there's this all-out war between the two brothers and Nibiru. And I don't remember exactly where the story goes from there, but I think mankind eventually just survives this war, and we're waiting for them to return. But now that's the ancient Mesopotamians. What's ironic is the first city that they created was, I think, Ediru, something like that, Ediru. And ironically, the city that Moses emigrates from is Ur, right around the same place. And we're talking miles apart. And from there is where you get the Christian take on that story. But and it gets really interesting. But I'll let you guys kind of talk about this before we go into the next Christian idea. What do you guys think?
That's amazing. Yeah,
It is. I immediately thought of Cain and Abel when you talked about the two brothers.
Yeah.
That come to mind, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yep.
That is fascinating. I don't know where you get your information. I could talk
That
to
was
you for
really
hours.
cool.
Yeah. Jason fascinates me because the other night we were on the phone. I just called him to ask him something, and we were on the phone for like an hour and a half, and I'm listening to his stuff. His research is so deep, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I went to college for 4 years, and I went to law school, and now I realize that everything I learned was like crap. It's an amazing thing. Who was? I think it was Mark Twain that said, "Be careful with formal education. It'll really mess you up. With that book learning, it'll screw you up good." So, but Paul, let me come back to you a second, because you said something about, well, why would the aliens come here? Let's assume for a second, and I truly believe, I'm not I am a conspiracist, I guess, but there has to be superior races out there, because we are stupid. I believe we're a really moronic race, because we have such a beautiful planet, everything, and we tend to screw things up. I tend to believe that everything man touches, sooner or later, they'll screw it up. But here's the question I have for you, Paul. You said, I guess you were just speaking generally, and they're probably thinking these, well, why would these aliens come here? And the thing I thought about was exploration. Right. Just like Christopher Columbus explored, and they came here, and he explored, he found the New World and stuff like that. Isn't it possible that these aliens are just out there exploring, and they just maybe ran into us, or they saw us and said, hey, there's some movement over there. Yeah. Let's go check this out. Is that possible?
They saw Walgreens down there and wanted to see what that was all about.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, actually, no, not Walgreens, but Walmart. Walmart
okay.
Bill,
dude. Yeah.
Okay. But it's the same thing that we're wanting to go to Mars, to colonize on Mars, possibly.
There you go.
Right. I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, it could be the same thing. I mean, we don't know if these, if there's actual aliens. I mean, there has to be. I mean, the universe is so huge, you can't tell me that there's not. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, they're probably just trying to colonize here, like we're eventually trying to do it in Mars. We're going to screw that planet up too.
Yeah, Rick, my whole thesis on mankind, on man, I'm 72, and I've been around. Like Pacino was, I've been around. And I think the biggest problem with man is their ego. I mean, our egos are so big that we think that we really know it all. We want to go, to other planets and crap. I see this space exploration thing, and I think to myself, why do you want to colonize Mars, the moon? What do you want to go to the moon? haven't you screwed enough things up? You've screwed this. You want to go screw somebody else up?
Yeah.
You see, that's my whole thing about, what's your thought on that?
My thought on that, two things. When Paul was talking about exploration, the first thing that came to my mind was, what if they have a Viking mentality? What if they have a Genghis Khan mentality? And they just haven't unleashed that yet. But going back to Jason's story with the two brothers, maybe they did already do that. When they started inseminating and creating females and basically cropping us or creating us as sheep, basically, is what that theory reminded me of, is basically Viking mentality. I mean, maybe they're just going planet to planet and just taking over if that's what they wanted to do. But I'm with Jason. If they wanted to do that, they'd have done that a long time ago. You can't tell me with their superior knowledge and their technology that they haven't already considered that. I mean, we are the dumb ones in this universe. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. And I agree with you that why are we trying to take over other areas? It just, again, going back to the Gates thing, it scares the hell out of me with all this population control theory, which is no longer a theory to me anymore. I think it's really happening in front of us. But yeah, maybe they know what's coming and they just want to take over other places. Mars and Moon are not feasible to me with the technology we have yet. Will they be? Sure. But I don't understand it. It's egos of some of these rich ass men that want to explore space and mess with the unknown, basically.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that I have, I'm sorry, Ralph.
No, go.
The only thing that I have question about the taking over our world is they've been here so long, supposedly. Right. Wouldn't they have done it by now?
That's what I was saying.
Get completely messed up, then take it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're waiting until we self-destruct. I mean, they might not be in a hurry. See, maybe time for them doesn't exist like time does for us. I know that my knowledge of God, when I study the Bible, is God's not concerned with time as we are. Mm-hmm. He doesn't deal in the realm of time. To him, a lifetime, our lifetime is a split second to him in our terms. So maybe to them it's the same thing, because maybe time is something we invented. It's something we came up with because, once again, our ego. See what I'm saying, Paul? So I mean, we could discuss this forever, but it's just a very interesting conversation. And so before we hand it over back to Jason, because I know he wants to continue his train of thought, I would venture to say, let me ask each of you. I'll start with Paul, just, yes or no, and why. Do you really believe that there are other life forms?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Rick?
Look at how big our universe is. You can't tell me that there's not another planet somewhere that is similar to ours.
I hope not. I hope it's so much better.
No. Exactly. But I mean, there has to be another planet somewhere in this universe that has life on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's never been proven. I don't know how it would be ever, but I have to believe that there is something else out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick, what do you think?
Oh, I do. I'm a Christian, but I do believe there's alternate life. If there wasn't, Area 51 would have never been such a big deal. That gentleman that came out of there, like we talked about, that found the element, he's not full of it. Dude's a brilliant man. He's not full of it. Now he was scared for his life half the time for even opening his mouth. Area 51 would have never existed if it's really nothing. I mean, come on. I mean, this government's lied to us for years, and they've covered it up for years, and maybe it is for our own protection at times when they do that, but it's just crazy to me that you can't believe that there's something out there. I mean, again, Area 51 should be all the proof you need. Try driving into that gate or anywhere around it and see how crazy,
see how far you get.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go to the Capitol.
No. I live down in Wright State, and I made a wrong turn into that Air Force base and had two M16s pointed at my car when I took a wrong turn. So, yeah, I totally believe that there's aliens out there.
Yeah, we can get into a whole discussion. My theory as to why they don't want to disclose all that, or why they They keep us so entertained. People today, us, so
Mhm.
many things going on in our lives, and I think that's part of the plan is to keep us just so distracted, so we
Distracted
don't,
from
yeah,
what's
we don't
going
pay attention.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have. It's just like people in Cuba. Most people. I'll hand this over to you, Jason, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just like people in Cuba. See, the average person that's never been to Cuba or has never been associated with a Cuban. And I'm using Cuba as an example because it's 90 miles from our border. Number one. Number two, I've been married. I was born from Cuban parents, and I've been married to a Cuban woman who fled the revolution when she was 17 years old. No, she was older than that, but she lived in the revolution for 8 years. And you ask most people who've never had that type of contact with Cuban people, tell me about Cuba. They know nothing about Cuba. Cuban people, I don't want to get into this deeply, but Cuban people wake up every morning and they have one thought on their mind, just like many other parts of the world. And that is, what am I going to feed my family today? That's all they're concerned about, because they are so overwhelmed with all the crap that's thrown at them by the government. They have nothing else to do. You see, and I believe the same thing here on a different scale. They keep us entertained. All this crap that's going on in our lives, people don't even have time to think anymore. So things like, what is that called? Area 51?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You think, does anybody ever talk about that? No, they'd rather
I
talk
mean,
about San Francisco 49ers, because it keeps their mind distracted, and movies and all this.
True.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go ranting on that, but that's the way that I feel, you know? So if you guys have any comments before one of you guys hand it over to Jason, and because I know Jason wanted to continue his train of thought,
mhm.
and I apologize for interrupting you, Jason,
No.
but I do it well, don't I? Yeah. Yeah, I've learned how to do it. I got it down to a science. So Jason, I know you
Okay,
wanted
so
to follow up.
I remember the two brothers' names now. It was Anki and Enlil. And
Sounds like a sitcom.
yeah, right. And they have all kinds of stories. There was a female involved in there too, and like a triangle between both of them. But basically, when they first created Adamu, right, they were supposed to tend to the garden. So this is where how it kind of ties into like the Garden of Eden story. So remember, I had told you that Moses left from the city of Ur. Basically, he had God speak to him and tell him, these are not the true gods. You need to get away from these people, right? So he goes on his march and he leaves, and he starts little by little gathering a flock. So what would happen is when people would not obey the Anunnaki, they would get banished. So they would get kicked out of the city and kicked out of the garden. So he went around and scooping those people up and forming his group. Well, from Moses, after the flood, really, it started before the flood because Enoch is Moses' great grandfather. So in the book of Enoch, it tells a very similar story. It talks about a war in heaven, and these angels betray God. They turn against God. A third of all the angels wage a war in heaven, but they're defeated, and they get thrown down to the earth. They're called the Watchers. They were supposed to watch over mankind and just, keep everything, copacetic and going the right way and everything. And it kind of alludes to the story that when God created Eve, there was never a female ever before that. So in the angel realm, they were all a bunch of dudes. There was no women. So now they see this beautiful woman, and they're all kind of falling in love and falling in lust, really. So when they get kicked out of heaven, they come down to the earth, and now they're angels who have the sins that angels can commit. They've already done that, but now they have bodies. And imagine they weren't, children and then teenagers, and you have all these hormones, but you learn how to live with them and not become a freak and do all kinds of weird things, right? Well, they just become grown men. And not just grown men, but they're giants with all this power because they're like angels in human bodies. And they see all these women. Have you guys ever thought why women are supposed to cover themselves up when they go in church? And like why Muslim women completely cover themselves in a hijab? Because if these people of power, when they would go to meet them in the church, if they lusted over them, they would rape them. And the unholy union of these fallen angels and women, right, were the giants. or these freaks, these, big, they call them the Nephilim, right? So it says it in Genesis. The children of God came into the daughters of man and gave birth to the Nephilim. And then after, you fast forward a little bit, and after the flood, it says there was giants in the earth in those days and also after. So they survived the flood. That's why, if you've looked at the Old Testament, you go, well, what's up with God? Like, why was he so ruthless back then? He told them, go into that town, kill every last man, woman, and child. Like, where did that come from? He didn't do that in the New Testament. What was going on? And it's because they were trying to get rid of this DNA that was still left over. And it was, obviously, if you look at David and Goliath, it was the same story, right? These giants were there. Go take them out. So if you look at it, this predates anything that we've talked about. And to just go a totally different direction. Have you guys ever heard, I know you guys are alien UFO enthusiasts, of course, that's why we're here. The Nazi Die Glocken project. You ever heard of that?
I have not.
The Nazi
Paul?
bell, they call it. Okay. Basically, it looks like the Liberty Bell. It's kind of shaped like a bell, right? And they would put it in this like a henge thing, like a circle, almost looked like a Stonehenge, and chain it to it. And the idea was it had some sort of like opposite rotating turbines. They ran mercury through it, kind of similar to like the Indian Vimanas, and created some sort of electromagnetic field. It would levitate and start moving around inside of that thing. So they had it all chained so it wouldn't, just take off and destroy itself. The idea was they were trying to figure out anti-gravity. But this is a crazy theory now that ties it to Roswell. The story is when they recovered the Roswell craft, there was some sort of Nazi logos on there, but there was also ancient texts, like Semitic texts, kind of like this, with the Sumerians that we were talking about before. So the idea was that the Nazis went into this occult practice, mixed it with technology, and came up with this thing, this Nazi bell, that somehow traveled into the future and crashed in Roswell, New Mexico.
Wow.
And
Whoa.
are we seeing aliens, or are we seeing ourselves from the future coming back? Are we seeing ourselves from the past? Something bad happened and we went forward. Who knows? But these are just a series of different theories on what.
And we're going to look like this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to look like Paul.
There you go.
At least they don't look like the fat guys from.
You're referring
Wall-E.
to you, Paul, or the guy behind you?
The guy behind me here. This guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Listen, I just want to throw something in because here's just so you understand the simplicity of my mind. This just proves to you that really anybody can get through law school. Okay. So Jason is talking about all this. I'm really having trouble, following him because it's so fascinating and it's so. Well, one thing crossed my mind. It just when you said that these giants, they saw the first woman for the first time, and so I wonder where did the word woman come from? And right, where do woman? So I can only imagine they seen this first woman, Eve, right? What do they say?
Wow, man.
Whoa, man! That kind of sucked,
How you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing,
How you
babe?
doing?
So, anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah, but that is fascinating. Paul, have you ever heard any part of that story? Or
I have not. And actually, when you were saying all this stuff, Jason, I kept going back to Star Wars. I don't know why, but what was the planet that you were saying?
Nibiru.
We began with it. What was it?
Yeah.
It's Nibiru. Nibiru.
Okay, that's Naboo
Like
from
Naboo.
one of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And the giant that comes down, that's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
It just seemed like, it wasn't, but it seemed like there was a lot of parallels with that. And, that's just where my crazy mind.
Well, he did it. He's Jewish, and he based it on a lot of the Jewish texts that none of us have read, because unless you're not only Jewish, but like really deep into your religion, you're not going to read them.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, there you go. Maybe.
well, like
even
Jason,
like-
Jason, just like you do so much research, and you come up with all this information that God knows I could never do that. I look at some of these movies, guys, think about these movies that were made 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of this stuff. And then you wonder, says, yeah, where did they come up with that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really like innovative. That's like so deep. And these are guys like Jason that sit there and they do research all day long. And that's how they come up with these themes. The Minority Report. I mean, there's so many movies. You can just, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Have you guys ever heard of Project Bluebeam?
No,
Blue Beam.
I haven't.
Yeah.
No.
Don't ask me that
So-
anymore. I've never heard of any of those projects.
So the story goes, it's World War II, and we want to trick the enemy, right? The Japanese and the Nazis. We want to make them think that we're attacking over there instead of attacking here or whatever. So they had like inflatable tanks, and it made it look like there was a bunch of transports or whatever, and they would put them over there, and it was extremely successful, which is why we were, even though Normandy, as bad as it was, right, it was successful. They had all their tanks somewhere else. If not, we might have failed. So that came out. I mean, after that, they came out with the idea, well, if we could do that on land, imagine if we could do it in the sky. So we have, let's say, 100 aircraft, but we can make it look like 1,000. So now the anti-aircraft batteries, they're shooting at nothing. They're shooting at projections in the sky, right? And that was, 1945 technology? Imagine what we have now. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, it's happened a few times, like in China and in different parts of the world, where it looks like there's a city in the sky. Strange stuff, right? And even some of these UFOs, it wouldn't have propulsion. Like you would not see any heat from it if it was just a projection, right? So there's a Christian conspiracy that the government is going to do basically a fake alien invasion, right? Using projections and whatever else, and then say, no, we have peace with them, but now everybody needs to unite under this one central government and do what we tell you, kind of thing. And so if you look at Revelation, the book of Revelation in the Bible, it talks about God will appear in the sky. It talks about an angel that's going to fly all over the world proclaiming the good news. And then some people are going to be lifted up. I think it's 10 feet off the ground. And then you're going to be raptured and you're going to be taken. And, that could be interpreted. There's a church for every interpretation, right?
Yeah.
But the Christian conspiracy theory is that they're going to trick us. And they're going to make some people disappear they don't want around. And then they're going to control every single thing. And I mean, if we look where we're at, I mean, it does sound kind of, it ties right in with Agenda 2030 from the United Nations. But
Right.
Say that last part again. Did you
Agenda
think of-
2030, the UN plan to basically control everything.
Yeah, we need to keep in mind that a lot of people that'll be watching this don't know what any of these things mean. So if I were to say to you, well, explain that agenda.
Okay,
can you give us like
so it was a unanimous decree that they all agreed to, all the nations of the United Nations in, I think it was 93, it was in the 90s. And basically it was that they're going to, because the, climate change and all these other factors, the world needs to be controlled under one government that controls all the land, all the sea, the air, the resources. And by the way, we're resources and we're carbon. And we're talking digital ID, passports. They know where you are. I mean, they kind of already know where we are, But imagine once they have digital money, then they know where you are, and they go, I don't like you, so you don't have a wallet today. And imagine the control. You mentioned Cuba. That's even worse than Cuba.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they want us to eat crickets.
Yeah, I saw that. That's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, the digital currency thing scares the absolute hell out of me, because what they're talking about is a digital also like credit system, or how your credit scores are and stuff like that, where they can control your money on what you buy, literally. Because we were just talking about this the other day, me and my sister. Money's going obsolete. Like dollar bills are going obsolete, and they're going to control it all, literally. On your phones, on your bank, all they got to do is hit a button and deny you from using any of your credit, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be credit.
So if you have cash, there's people that have a little cash stashed away under their mattress or just as the saying goes.
Right.
What do you do with that cash? I mean, you're not a financial expert, but you're
What did Venezuela do with their cash? Because it pretty much lined the gutters by the end of theirs, didn't it?
Useless.
There was just money everywhere in the streets, and it's worth nothing.
Yeah, like look at the power that we had because of the petrodollar. Basically, the whole world used the dollar for oil. You had to use dollars to buy oil. So now there's trillions and trillions of dollars out there. But just this past week, or maybe it was last week, the Saudis announced that they'll start accepting other currencies. So they're going to accept the BRICS currencies. And now people can dump their dollars. They don't need them anymore. So now all that money is going to flood the market. And every dollar that comes back to the United States is going to make your dollar 50 cents less.
Yep.
That's right.
Wow.
And that's where we're headed.
This is why the New World Order. So they want to change they want to make it a global currency. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. And digital.
So how does this tie in? Paul, I know you're listening intently to this. Just off the top of your head, does anything come to mind? What? See, I want to frame this question. What the money? Because I believe that money runs the world. I truly believe that all these people that are in this New World Order, Jason, am I wrong? These are all billionaires. I mean, these are people that are they have so much wealth.
Yeah.
They own so much land. So that has to be the common denominator.
It's money. And then a lot of these rich people, I mean, it was kind of exposed with the whole Epstein Island thing. So how do you control a powerful person that has all the money in the world? They can't be controlled. Imagine like a Donald Trump, right? How can you control him? Well, if you can get him to come to your island and do unspeakable things on camera when he doesn't know he's on camera, bam, you got him. If you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to put these videos out. And if you look at Epstein, not that we want to look at him, but him, what's her name? His madam?
Giselle or whatever.
Ghislaine
Maxwell.
Yeah.
That's her. Her
Maxwell.
father was it MI6 is what it is in England?
MI6.
I think it's MI6, right?
Yeah. It's
So, and then, so her dad's MI6. He has ties. What's the Israeli one? I forgot. Basically, like the Israeli CIA.
It's a Mossad.
The Mossad. And even on his island, it's painted like Israeli colors, and it's very strange. But there's again, I always come back to another conspiracy, but the story is that he was sent by our CIA and the Israeli CIA to do exactly what we just talked about. Get dirt on all these people from all over the world so we can control them. And I mean, it worked.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it probably worked, if I may. It probably worked because they preyed upon man's most basic instinct.
Yeah.
And that is sex. Because that's
And
man's
pride.
most primitive instinct is sex. And then when you have so much money as all of these people that visited that island, if you have the money and the power, because they're all powerful people in their own right, what else is there?
Yeah.
Lust. Really, that's it. They don't need any more money. They don't need any more power. They need the lust. The
It's like the story of the fallen angels. They had everything. They're angels, right? They're more powerful. They have all this stuff, but the lust got them and the pride got them. Because another main component of this is that the idea that they found out that God's son was going to be one of us, a lower being. And they said, we're not going to bow down to a lower being. So you have the lust and then the rebellion, because we're not going to bow down to your human son. And bam, war and rape.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and that's great for a follow-up episode, because you know what's interesting? Remember, we started this discussion with aliens, talking about that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, we tie it all in. We tie it all in with stuff that's really happening now, and we tie it into the Bible. So it's very interesting. And what's interesting is, for example, Jason, you're Catholic. Are you Christian or Catholic, or do you?
It's a tough question to
Okay,
answer.
that's okay. But you believe in God.
Yes. So I grew up Catholic. I would say I'm more Christian than anything at this point.
Okay, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, because really, to me, it makes no difference. I have friends that are atheists, I don't look down upon them.
No.
No, it's just
No,
for me, it's
yeah,
a
you
tough
sit
one.
down and you talk to them. So I get what you're coming from. I was raised Catholic, and I'm going to go around the horn. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic, I went to military school, but I went to Catholic school before that, at high school, all that stuff. And then I was introduced to Jesus in the mid-1990s, Christian, and became a Christian. I do not believe in religion. I do not believe in religion because I think religion was organized, was made up by man. There's just different factions.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Rick, I know you're a Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is fascinating to me. So I think at some point in time, we should have a discussion on our different views as to, and Paul, I'm not sure,
Can't
what's your
remember.
position.
I think Paul's.
I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic,
Okay.
and I haven't, been to a church in a long time. But yeah,
Yeah, that
raised
doesn't
Catholic.
matter. Yeah,
No,
maybe,
not at all.
maybe you want to stay.
I'm a
Christian in
Stormin
church.
Mormon. I don't follow my religion to a T. I'm
Okay.
sitting here cussing with you and drinking a beer with some chewing. I mean, but I believe religion, like you said, Paul, Ralph. It's literally it's your personal relationship with God. It has nothing to do with anybody else's views.
Yeah, absolutely
It's
right. Absolutely.
you have a one-on-one with your God. Period.
Wow, what an interesting conversation. I think we're going to have to pick this up on the next episode. I don't think we're finished talking about aliens because I know Jason has a bunch of other stuff to share with us, and I know Paul is probably chomping at the bit because I know you've done a lot of research. Paul, is there anything regarding aliens, that you want to touch upon? Maybe lead us into the next episode. I don't want to put you on the spot, but something that
Oh,
we
wow.
haven't discussed.
There's just so much. I mean, I don't know if you guys are. I don't mean to promote another show, but on TV. But there's a TV show called Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, and they talk about petroglyphs a lot in that. And I mean, those go back way back in history and stuff. And listening to all the alien talk and everything, you kind of see the pictures. You see the people carved in the stone, and then you see something above them that looks like a spaceship or whatever. And then some of these things are starting to, they're talking about a god in a chariot, and maybe that's a spacecraft coming down. So it's been around for a long time, and I think it's going to be here for a long time too.
Well, we haven't brought up reptilians yet.
Reptilians. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got some in my neighborhood.
Well, you got half of Hollywood's crawling with them. So yeah,
Rick, that's even better.
Adele just turned into one the other day.
That's right.
But she looks better as a reptilian.
She probably does.
Yeah. Well, there are reptilians and there are reptilians,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's a good looking
Hey,
reptilian.
the Series V, man. That was my show growing up in the 80s.
I don't know.
Gentlemen, this is fascinating. Let's pick this up on the next episode where we left off with aliens and all this kind of stuff. It just tied in. I'll tell you, I believe there's alien life forms out there, but you guys just opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff that, wow, it's just, now I'm really anxious to get back with this and learn a lot more because there's just no way that we're the only race out there. And if we are, this is my closing comment. If we are the only race out there, we're in deep shit. This universe is in deep shit. Okay. So, Paul, you got any closing comments?
Hey, I actually echo what you said. We're in deep shit if we're the only life form out there, but I don't think there's any snowball's chance in hell that there's no other life form.
I agree.
I mean,
Rick,
look
sir.
at Madonna now. That can't be.
Oh my God, have you seen that?
Sorry.
She is disgusting.
You had to bring that. You see, Paul, you told me before the show, Ralph, stay away from that. We don't. And look at you bring this.
That's like you see her from behind, pretty hair, decent
Yes.
body. She turns around.
It's
So
like,
bad.
it's
She looks like a Jigsaw.
Yeah, she does.
I mean,
I was gonna say
spitting
something
image
now.
of Jigsaw. Yeah.
It's horrible, isn't it?
No.
It's horrible. I saw a picture of her, and seriously, well, Jason, you know my wife, and I bring her over and I showed her the picture on my PC, my screen, and she says, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's Madonna." She said, "Madonna." And she stops for a second. She says, "Does she have a boyfriend or husband?" I says, I don't know. She says, "I don't think so." I don't think anybody would have sex with that.
Oh.
Oh my God. I says, okay, let's move on. Okay. You know? Disgusting, man. But we could talk about, Hollywood and the actors and their position.
Yeah, she doesn't credit Dennis Rodman enough. He'd still do it.
I think
You know, you may be right, Rick. I think you're onto something.
I am. Yeah.
Rick, why don't you open up like a matchmaker business?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
match
yes.
these
That'd be
people
great.
up.
Well, they've already done that deed. I'm just saying he'd go back for seconds. He's the
Yeah, but I think you would add a whole new dimension to this matchmaking thing. That's funny. So, Rick, any closing comments?
No, I agree with both of you. There's no way we're the only ones. Like I said, if we are, then we are the dumbest military in the history of the world, which obviously we are. But to protect a piece of desert like we do, if there's nothing there, then we're idiots. So,
yeah. Well, you know, a lot of the young people, Rick, may not know what Roswell
they have no
is.
idea what Area 51 is. No.
All right, so let's put this down. We'll put this down, right? You know, we'll have in post, we'll put it down, Roswell, and maybe a website or something. They can go check it out. Because if any of you that are watching this are interested in that type of thing and these ultra secrets and this, go check that out. And it'll open up your eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding us of that, Rick. So, Jason, what do you say, buddy?
Elon Musk says he's not an alien, but I'm not convinced.
That dude's a brainiac, though. I give him credit. He is untouchable. That dude is untouchable.
You know what Paul said to me before the show? He texted me today. He says, Ralph, stay away from politics. Don't bring other people, politicians, into the show. The alien. And you guys start talking about, no, not politicians, but, you know, Madonna and Elon Musk and stuff like that. You see, Paul? You see? We can't stay away from it, buddy.
Well, there's a theory. They think the Queen was an alien, a reptilian. You heard about that one?
No. But hold that thought. We'd love to hear about it.
Yep.
Oh, there's some good ones. Yeah.
I love that. See, now I'm really getting into conspiracies. I really like that. Good God, guys. All right. So listen, great show, guys. Appreciate your input. We will do the next show. We'll follow this one up. Let's just follow it up. And if we have to do 2 or 3 episodes, and let's get the website down there. If you have a comment, just get back to us at youandthetruth.com. That's youandthetruth.com. It'll be actually youthetruth.com.
Yeah.
It'll be right on the screen there. And I guess that's it, folks. It's been a ride. I love it. Love to listen to you guys. You guys are a hell of a lot smarter than me. I can tell you that. And I've learned a hell of a lot, and I hope to be able to learn more in the future. So with that said, guys, remember, if you're watching this, you just come face to face with the truth. And a lot of people don't like to face the truth. Now, what you do with that truth, well, is up to you. See you next time.
Time is in the past now. Where I'm rolling, I can't say. Time to take it back now. Teach my children.
You have just come face to face with the truth. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit that bell so you will be notified when we drop new episodes.